Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel. This is my review for Jurassic World Dominion, which is the third and final film in the Jurassic World trilogy, as well as the sixth film in the Jurassic Park franchise collectively. If you saw the title of this video, you know that I'll be talking about spoilers, and this is something that I don't normally like to do with a movie that's just been released. I like to give a spoiler-free review and pretty much just talk about the movie as vaguely as I can. And if I decide to do a spoiler review at some point in the future, then I will do it to further emphasize things that I either liked or didn't like about the movie. But in the case of Jurassic World Dominion, this is a movie that is so bad and just so terrible all around that I have to talk about it in spoilers. I know I'm rushing into my feelings right away with how I feel about this movie, but in order to really tell you why I feel the way I do, I have to spoil this movie. So if you didn't see Jurassic World Dominion, just take this as a warning, or if you don't care, then let's continue. I should emphasize right now in saying that this was my most anticipated movie of 2022. While everyone had the Batman or Multiverse of Madness at the top of their list, Jurassic World Dominion was my most anticipated movie of this year, which is surprising because Fallen Kingdom was not good. So why was I excited for this? Well, as terrible as Fallen Kingdom was, the ending of that movie did leave us on a fascinating cliffhanger on dinosaurs are now on the mainland and humans have to coexist among them. How they got to that point was so stupid you couldn't even believe it, but it did lead to an interesting cliffhanger. Then in 2019, there was the short film Battle at Big Rock, which kind of showed us this new world of humans and dinosaurs coexisting together. There was the prologue that was originally supposed to be the opening of this film, but ended up being another short film. And that had a really cool sequence where the T-Rex is loose in a drive-in theater, not attacking anyone, just acting like a frightened animal. So that was also really neat. Then there was the Dino Tracker website, which basically consisted of a bunch of viral videos of dinosaurs among humans. It was all really cool, and there was a lot of promise with this third movie. So if you're one of those people like me that was excited about the notion of this being a Planet of the Dinosaurs type movie, well, keep on waiting, because that's not what this movie is about. The one thing that all the marketing and the previous film built up to doesn't even play into this film. Let me actually read to you the plot description of this movie from the official Jurassic World website. The plot description is as follows. Dominion takes place 4 years after Isla Nublar has been destroyed. Dinosaurs now live and hunt alongside humans all over the world. This fragile balance will reshape the future and determine once and for all whether human beings are to remain the apex predators on a planet they now share with history's most fearsome creatures. That is a lie. Let me tell you what the actual plot of this movie is. Actually, before I get into that, I should say that the first bit of the movie actually does start out that way. There is a newscast that plays at the beginning of the movie to pretty much catch us up to speed, which I wasn't a huge fan of, but at least it put us back into this world. There's a sequence in the movie where Claire, along with Franklin and Zia, help rescue a baby Nasutoceratops from a breeding ground similar to a cattle site. And that sequence is very short, but it was sort of enjoyable. Franklin was actually not annoying this time around. Justice Smith actually did a good job, and they didn't really play up his timid nature at all. He's like, look, I can't do this anymore. I've got a job that I can actually help the world with. So he's not in the movie for very long, but the little time he's in it, I'm like, you know what, he's actually not bad this time. We see Owen wrangling a bunch of Parasaurolophus on horseback, which I've always hated this character just because he's so invincible and has no personality at all outside of just being Chris Pratt. But throughout this entire movie, I didn't find him as indestructible as he was in Fallen Kingdom, so at least there's that. There's Maisie, the little clone girl from Fallen Kingdom, who Claire and Owen have adopted. She encounters an Apatosaurus at a construction site and tells the workers, hey, here's how you get it out of here so you can return to work. Oh, and then the film's opening is the Mosasaurus interrupting an episode of Deadliest Catch, where it catches a giant basket of crabs and drags a ship under. So all of that, with the exception of the newscast, did a good job at establishing this world where dinosaurs and humans are forced to live among each other. But again, that's not what the plot of this movie is. The plot of this movie involves giant mutant locusts that have been genetically engineered by Biosyn, InGen's rival, who was never mentioned in the original Jurassic Park. But anyway, they've genetically created these mutant locusts to eat all the crops in the world, except the ones that were engineered by Biosyn themselves. So it's pretty much this giant company trying to control the Earth's ecosystem and food supply. So Ellie Sattler recruits Dr. Alan Grant to head over to the Biosyn facility to try to prove that these mutant locusts are a product of Biosyn. And they get there because Dr. Ian Malcolm is an employee there who is also undercover as well. Can you tell what the problem is with that plot description? Not once did I mention a dinosaur. And that's one of the big problems I have with this movie. I have 6 bullet points on why this is a terrible film, but this is the first bullet point. All of the trailers and all the marketing leading up to this film was a complete lie, because this movie plays out more like a Mission Impossible movie, or I guess since this is a Universal film, this is probably Colin Trevorrow's test reel to resurrect the Bourne series, which, I mean, Universal's not going to listen to me because I didn't make them billions of dollars with their most profitable franchise, so we'll see what happens. These mutant locusts come out of nowhere. They were never established in any of the previous Jurassic World films, nor in the Jurassic Park trilogy. So, for this being marketed as the epic conclusion of the Jurassic era, what was this conclusion built off of? That's going to be another bullet point later on, but it's just so baffling that the movie decides to pull a plot out of its ass and feel like some sort of random adventure, while the main thing that was promised in all the marketing is just pushed to the side, including Beta, Blue's child. There's a good chunk of this movie where she runs loose in the Biosyn facility and she doesn't pop back up for a good hour. So you are forgetting that this Velociraptor is supposed to be a plot point in the film. But all of those lies lead into the second problem I have with this movie. The dinosaurs are in the background. Now, eventually you do plan on having dinosaurs in your dinosaur movie, right? Hello? Hello? Yes? I already mentioned how the plot description omitted any mention of a dinosaur. And outside of the opening few scenes, this world doesn't feel any different than it was prior to the events of Fallen Kingdom. The only times we ever see dinosaurs in our world coexisting among humans is when they're in a black market in Malta. You got a Carnotaurus and an Allosaurus locked up in a giant cage. You have a Biosyn agent who is selling off Atrociraptors, which have the same laser-guided attack pattern that the Indoraptor had in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, which the fact that they followed up on that stupid concept is baffling. And it does lead to an action scene where the Atrociraptors are chasing Owen and Claire through the streets of Malta, but it's not that fun. It's kind of boring, and these Atrociraptors are the most accident-prone creatures in the entire franchise. Like, they're running into the sides of walls, they're running into each other, they're tripping non-stop. Are these supposed to be threatening? Like, if they're supposed to be more intimidating than the actual Velociraptors, then they didn't do a really good job of convincing us otherwise. The only scene in this movie involving a dinosaur that even comes close to being as thrilling as some of the stuff we've gotten in the previous films was when Claire is running away from a Therizinosaurus, which this creature has a little bit of a creepy factor considering that it's also blind. So it's pretty much the Daredevil of dinosaurs, where it can hear anyone that's in its territory. And it's a pretty well-filmed scene, but it doesn't go on for very long. And outside of the Atrociraptor chase, that's the biggest problem with this movie. All the dinosaur sequences just kind of come in and then they're gone instantly. You see the Allosaurus and Carnotaurus rampaging through the streets of Malta. That's not very long. In fact, you see the entire rampage in the trailers. And that big rivalry between the Giganotosaurus and the T-Rex from the original Jurassic Park, it's nothing. It was built up in the prologue for this film, where the prehistoric T-Rex is killed by the Giganotosaurus. Its blood is used to create the T-Rex that we know and love. So this should have been a big, huge rivalry, especially when considering that if you played Jurassic World Evolution 2, or if you read up on any external sources with this franchise, you know that Giganotosaurus DNA was used to create the Indominus Rex. So that would have been a great way to tie it all around to the first Jurassic World film, but they don't. And that big final battle at the end of the movie is really nothing. It's poorly filmed, it's way too short, it just doesn't feel epic at all. And because the movie is so invested in this locust subplot, we just have to accept that dinosaurs have now learned to coexist with other life on Earth. Like we see the Parasaurolophus running with a herd of horses. We see the Mosasaurus interacting in a friendly manner to a pod of humpback whales. And there's no build up to it at all. It's just so stupid. The one thing that we wanted to see, you resolved off screen. I'm already as frustrated as I am with this movie, and we're only halfway through this list. So let's jump into the number 3 reason why this movie doesn't work. The original legacy cast. Everyone was excited for this movie because you got the return of Sam Neill as Dr. Alan Grant, the return of Laura Dern as Dr. Ellie Sattler, and Jeff Goldblum as Ian Malcolm had a much bigger role in this movie than he did in Fallen Kingdom. That was actually not the selling point for me. I'm a little tired of nostalgia baiting, so the concept of dinosaurs and humans coexisting on the mainland was the biggest selling point for me in this movie because I wanted something different. And the legacy cast coming back was more of a nice bonus than anything. But out of all the legacy sequels that we have gotten, this might be one of the single worst uses of the original cast coming back. The most recent Scream movie made that concept work. Ghostbusters Afterlife made it work. And say what you want about the Star Wars sequel trilogy, but Han, Luke, and Leia felt organic to that series of movies. They actually worked within the film's plot. The cast from Jurassic Park comes in way too late. It almost feels like an afterthought to put into this movie. And because the plot is not centered around dinosaurs, what's the purpose of them being in this movie? Out of the 3 original cast members, Laura Dern is the one who gets top billing. Jeff Goldblum is the one that steals the show, but that's because he's Jeff Goldblum. He's always going to be lovable no matter what. But Laura Dern is the main character out of the original 3. And she brings in Dr. Alan Grant to help her with this locust problem because she trusts him. I'm like, I don't think locusts are his field. He's more about dinosaurs than prehistoric locusts. I mean, maybe, I'm not a paleontologist, so maybe there's some logic to him coming in, but even putting that aside, it doesn't make sense for her to recruit him because he's old. Sam Neill in this movie is older than Richard Attenborough was when he made the first Jurassic Park. So Sam Neill might look younger than Richard Attenborough did in Jurassic Park, but he's an old man at the end of the day. It's really weird to bring him in. It felt incredibly forced to bring in these 3 characters into the movie. Were they fun to see when they got back on screen together? Sure, because Owen and Claire are not that great of characters. I like Claire a little better than I do Owen Grady, but I don't know. It doesn't feel right for them to be in this movie. And when the original cast and the new cast come in, I guess it's cool to see them interact with each other, but it's very brief. You have to wait a long time for them to actually meet up. It just feels more like fan service than anything. Speaking of inorganic, let's talk about the number 4 reason why this is a terrible movie. This is a completely forced conclusion. Like I said before, the tagline for this movie was "Witness the epic conclusion of the Jurassic era." And even when I was excited for this movie, I thought to myself, What conclusion? Because if you're talking about Biosyn, they're a company that, if you haven't read the novel Jurassic Park, you don't know about. They're the company that hired Dennis Nedry to pretty much sabotage Jurassic Park. They were InGen's rival, but they weren't even name-dropped in that original movie. That whole espionage subplot in Jurassic Park was only an excuse to have the dinosaurs roam free around the park and to put our human characters in danger. And even Steven Spielberg got rid of that subplot immediately because he already had his reasoning for the dinosaurs to be loose. Then you have the head of Biosyn, Lewis Dodson, who's played by Campbell Scott in this movie because the actor in the original Jurassic Park turned out to be a sex offender. And the whole time I'm watching this movie and they bring in Lewis Dodson, I'm thinking this. Dodson, we've got Dodson here! See, nobody cares. We use that sequence from Jurassic Park as a meme. It's funny to watch. It's just a funny moment all around, but that really does emphasize the point about this character. Nobody cares about Lewis Dodson. He's not a good villain. He was a one-time character in the original Jurassic Park as a means to have the movie happen. And the fact that he's played by a different actor, it doesn't even feel like the same character. It's just so forced all around. And getting back to the idea that this movie is supposed to be the culmination of all 6 Jurassic Park movies, that is such bullshit, because both Jurassic World and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom pretended that The Lost World and Jurassic Park 3 never happened. So don't try to spring us with this whole Avengers Endgame but for Jurassic Park stance. Because Avengers Endgame was a culmination to everything that led up to it. Every single movie in the Infinity Saga leading up to Avengers Endgame, whether you like them or not, paid off in the end. Each movie was important to the big finale of that franchise. Even though it's still going on, but that's not the point. With this movie, it feels more like The Rise of Skywalker than it does Avengers Endgame. And this is gonna put me in a very weird position because I've defended Colin Trevorrow's script for Duel of the Fates. When I read that script and I saw the concept art for what his version of Episode 9 would be, I thought, man, this is what I wanted. Why wasn't this the Episode 9 that we got instead of what we got with J.J. Abrams' fanfiction? But after seeing Jurassic World Dominion, I'm now really under the impression that Episode 9 was always doomed from the beginning. Whether it was The Rise of Skywalker or Duel of the Fates, it probably would have been a terrible movie either way. And Colin Trevorrow pretty much makes all the same mistakes that J.J. Abrams made with The Rise of Skywalker, including my number 5 point, contradicting things that have been set up in the past 2 movies. One of the biggest issues I have with Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker is how it pretty much went out of its way to course correct everything that was established, firmly established, in The Last Jedi. And if you're a fan of The Last Jedi like me, that's equally as insulting because it's all these good ideas like Rey's not related to anybody. Oh wait, no, she's a Palpatine. Her parents sold her off for drinking money. No, they sold her off to protect her. And you can tell it's done from a perspective of, we need to make these angry fanboys happy. With this movie, it's even worse because Colin Trevorrow's in charge of the entire trilogy. He may not have directed Fallen Kingdom, but he certainly wrote it. And one of the things that's firmly established in that second movie is that Benjamin Lockwood, and this is word for word, never had a granddaughter. And he had the technology, so he made another one. And then this movie goes in and says, oh no, Benjamin Lockwood's daughter was actually a scientist on Isla Sorna. She was pregnant without a boyfriend or husband, and her child ended up being an identical clone. And since Benjamin Lockwood was still alive at that period of time, that's his granddaughter. Maisie is Lockwood's granddaughter just by the fact that she is his daughter's child. Are you kidding me with this? It's bad enough that The Rise of Skywalker contradicted all those things established in The Last Jedi. This is even worse because the same guy who's in charge of this entire trilogy doesn't even know his own movies. He doesn't even know the entire story that he's trying to tell. So he's making stuff up as he goes along. And that just boggled my mind when that piece of exposition was dumped on us by Henry Wu. Which, by the way, the previous two Jurassic World movies established Henry Wu as a mad scientist. And then in this movie, he's sympathetic now. He wants to try to fix the mistake he's made with the locusts. Ignoring the fact that these locusts, again, came out of nowhere. Where did this strange character transition come from? When did he suddenly become all sympathetic? Because he certainly wasn't sympathetic in those prior movies. He was proud of creating the Indominus Rex and creating the Indoraptor. He didn't have a care in the world that the Indominus Rex was running loose around Jurassic World and killing people. It's insulting and plays out like the audience is stupid. And then we get to the sixth point of this movie. It's 2.5 hours long, and it's boring. I have no reason to go on with this particular point right here. The movie is 2.5 hours, with barely any dino action, with a plot that just came out of nowhere and feels like some random adventure, and it tries so hard to be an epic conclusion when this whole franchise has been pretty much inconsistent. Honestly, I liked it when the Jurassic Park trilogy was each their own movie. The Lost World may have had some things carried over from Jurassic Park, but it felt like a standalone. Jurassic Park 3 had no reason to be made at all. It's a very random dinosaur adventure, but at the very least, it's straightforward, it's thrilling, and it's only an hour and a half, so it's the shortest of all the Jurassic Park movies. The fact that the Jurassic World trilogy tries to have an overreaching arc in terms of its story is just trying too hard. I mean, ultimately, I give this movie some credit for at least being a different movie, but it's so different that it doesn't even feel like it belongs in this franchise. As terrible as Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom is, it at least felt like a Jurassic Park movie. The main focus of that film was about the dinosaurs, and there's some really intense, thrilling scenes in that movie. Everything that this movie does not have. Before I wrap things up, is there anything good about it? Well, like I said, the opening sequence outside that newsreel is pretty good. There's some really good special effects in this movie. There's obviously CG dinosaurs everywhere, but then there's a lot of animatronics. There are more animatronics in this movie than in the previous two films combined. And while all of them, in terms of texture and sculpting, look impressive, when it comes to the actual movement of these animatronics, they're a mixed bag. Some of them look really good, like they're incredible in terms of the way they move. But then other times, some of these animatronics are so stilted in terms of their movement that if Stan Winston was in charge of this movie, he would have fired the people responsible for making those specific animatronics, because when you watch those first three Jurassic Park movies, the animatronics are visually stunning. They look great, they move realistically. That T-Rex animatronic from the original film had to go through rain. It was jittering all the time, but it still felt like a real creature. And even with what's going on in the franchise right now, we've seen great Jurassic World animatronics. Like at Universal Studios Hollywood, the Indominus Rex animatronic at the end of the ride is incredible. And all of the animatronics in the new Jurassic World Adventure at Universal Studios Beijing. And even though I haven't been on that or the Jurassic World exhibition, the animatronics at that show look really great as well. So it's not like this franchise is incapable of making good animatronics. I'm gonna wrap things up because I've clearly spent way too much time talking about a movie that I hate. I don't normally use this word when it comes to my feelings on a movie, but I feel betrayed. This movie really was my most anticipated film of the year. The trailers promised us something, the last movie promised us something, all the marketing leading up to it promised us this really neat concept of humans and dinosaurs coexisting on the mainland. That's not what we got. So, I gotta tell this movie to burn in hell. I haven't said this about any of the Jurassic Park movies, and it really, I'm not angry, but this movie just really let me down. Like, I feel depressed thinking about how terrible this movie is. However, unlike a lot of other critics out there who have trashed this movie, I'm not giving up on this franchise. I mean, movie-wise, I really don't care anymore, but I think if they make a TV show based on the concept that we should have gotten with this movie, then that can be pretty good. Camp Cretaceous is a really fun show, and it's better than any of the Jurassic World movies, even if season 4 kind of fumbles a bit. The theme parks have been doing incredible stuff, like the conversion of Jurassic Park the ride into Jurassic World the ride is amazing. I haven't been on Velocicoaster yet, but I so want to. It looks so good. I'd like to go on Jurassic World Adventure in Beijing, and Jurassic World the exhibition, which is currently touring the country. I hope it makes its way to Los Angeles, or at least somewhere close by, because I want to go see it. And I'm obviously going to keep playing Jurassic World Evolution too, because I just love this franchise. But in terms of this movie alone, this really did disappoint me to no end. Like, this is going to make my bottom 10 list. I would be shocked if I see several movies that are worse than this that bump it off the list, because this movie really did hurt me. I don't normally like saying that because it's just a movie, and at the end of the day, it's not going to affect me in my personal life. But I just walked out of this movie disappointed to the point of heartbreak. So that's all I got to say. This movie is so terrible. And there you go, that's my review for Jurassic World Dominion. I hope you enjoyed it, and now I want to know what you guys think about the movie. If you've seen it, what did you think? Do you actually like this movie? If so, tell me why. And I'm not saying that in a sense of, why the fuck do you like this movie? I'm genuinely curious to know why you liked it. And if you did like it, then I'm happy you liked it. But whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you, there is only one. Hello everyone, I just wanted to say thank you all for watching my review for Jurassic World Dominion. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to get notifications. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, go check out my Twitch channel, and support me on Patreon. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day, and take care of yourselves.